Hi, I'm Caroline Mitchell, canine behaviourist at Good Doggy. A little while back, I was doing my usual scrolling on Facebook. Um, I'm in a lot of groups and I often look for people that are needing help, advice, tips, that kind of stuff. And I'll try and help them if I can. And I came across this post that was looking for some potty training advice. They seem to have worked really hard so far. And really were very much struggling with their toilet training. So I wrote out this big old post. I put lots of time and effort into this, trying to get them to go back to the beginning and, how they could improve their consistency and their timing, blah, 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 blah. And I got to the end of my post and I'd written out my comment and everything else. And just before I hit send, I thought I just really should just go back to the original post and just double check that I have got the gender of the dog right, because very often I'll just write out the thing and then you realise that actually they've referred to the dog as a he or a she all the way through and you've got that wrong. So I wanted to check that I got that right before I hit send on my comment. So I went back to the original post. My comment was still there, waiting to be sent, and reread the post. And very quickly I realised that actually these people weren't even looking for advice for a dog. They were looking for advice for their son. And so I quickly deleted my comment, but I didn't want to waste all of those tips and advice. So I've put them together here for you and made them into a video. So hopefully, if you're struggling with your toilet training advice for your dog or your puppy, then this is how you go about your toilet training. So the place to start is in the house. Puppies don't instinctively look to go outside or to a special place when they need to go to the toilet. Instinctively, all they need to do is to move away from where they sleep and where they eat. So they'll not want to go to the toilet in any of those kinds of areas, but as long as they're not in those areas, they'll be happy. So when we first start toilet training our dogs, we have to watch them like a hawk, because when they're looking to move away from those areas to find somewhere to pee or poo, they're not worried about where that might be. They'll wander behind the sofa, they'll wander behind curtains, they'll wander into different rooms, they'll go into the hallway. So they'll be just looking for somewhere that's not near where they rest. So we have to keep an eye on them the whole time. As soon as they go out of sight, we have to assume that they are looking for somewhere to go to the toilet, and they probably are. This is a lot of work, and don't underestimate how much effort it takes just to watch a new puppy that is in the very early stages of house training. We just have to watch them like a hawk. Crates are great for this, because whenever you can't watch your puppy and they go into their crate, the crate now is that sleeping space, and they'll want to move away from there when they need the toilet. But because they're enclosed within their crate area, they'll naturally hold on much longer, because they'll want to go to a different place. So as soon as we come back to them, we let them out of their crate, the chances are that they've been holding on for a little while in there and they'll need to go. This makes crate training really, really effective for house training, because if we realise that as soon as they come out of their crate, they're going to need the toilet, if we can get them to their toilet place as quickly as possible, then they're very likely to do a toilet there. And that gives us an opportunity straight away that we can reward them for that. Holding on also means that their bladder will start to get a bit stronger, and it means that they will be able to go longer between toilet breaks as well. So keeping an eye on them when they are not in sight, watching where they're going and grabbing them and taking them outside as soon as possible is step one. Maybe using a crate will help with that. Creating a predictable routine is the next thing on your list to do. So once you have a very predictable routine of taking them out at set times and then maybe hourly in between, this makes things a lot easier for you, because it lets your puppy know when they are next likely to get outside. So for example, you'll take them out first thing in the morning, you'll take them out after they've had their breakfast, you'll have after meals, but also maybe in between work as well. So perhaps if you're working from home and you always take them out mid-morning, then if you are very routined about that and you're very strict with that, then your puppy will be quite happy to hold on. a little bit longer, knowing that mid-morning you always take them out, mid-afternoon you always take them out, you stop work, you go straight outside. So they'll start to associate going outside with key times of the day and your own key behaviours as well. When this is very predictable, they'll just hold on that little bit longer. If they don't have a predictable routine, they'll start to feel like they need to go to the toilet. They'll have no idea whether you'll be taking them out in the next 5 minutes, 20 minutes or 2 hours. So they'll just go because it's better, it's easier for them. It's uncomfortable to need the toilet, and they're not going to wait. But if they know that normally by mid-morning, which is only a short while away, then they'll be able to hold on just that little bit longer. And keeping them holding on is the bit that strengthens that bladder and means that they can hold on even longer in the future. So predictable routine is really important. It also means that you're going to get them into a routine of eating and sleeping at the same sort of times, and that will also mean that their toilet will be needed at certain times as well. So they'll always need to go to the toilet when they wake up, they'll always need to go to the toilet after they've had something to eat and things like that. And if those are at regular scheduled times, then their toilet training will start to become regular as well and more predictable, not just for your puppy, but also more predictable for you, so that you'll know whether your dog still needs to have a poop when they're outside or not, whatever. So we're looking for kind of behaviours that they might need to go. This could also include suckling and searching kinds of behaviours. When they start sniffing around and looking for something, it's a good chance when they're little that they're looking for somewhere to go to the toilet. So until they've learned where their toilet space is or how to get to it, then these are really, really good indications that they need the toilet. So outside of their normal routine, outside of taking them out of their crate, when they start suckling or searching on the floor, looking for something, then these are the times to get them out to the toilet. So as soon as you see any of these signs or the routine comes up, you're going to take them straight to their spot where they usually go into the garden. So once we get to the garden, we need the garden to be clear of toys, because otherwise your puppy will forget exactly the reason why they came outside. They'll come outside, they'll start playing with their toys, they'll have a run around, they'll be having a great time, and then when their 5 minutes is up, you'll take them back into the house again, and just as they come in, they'll be going, oh, didn't go to the toilet, and that's when you're going to have an accident. And this is so frustrating for owners, because you feel like you've been out there for ages, they had plenty of opportunities, and then they came inside and did the toilet anyway. So taking away all of those toys and games until they've done all of that, make yourself really boring, so that they can just come out, concentrate on the activity that they have to do. And then once they've done that, you can do what you like with them after that. But it's getting them to be focused on what they want to do without being distracting. Once you've started this process, your puppy will start to find little areas in the garden that they prefer. So there might be a gravelly area at the back that they prefer to poop on, but they like to wee on the grass in the middle. Or maybe there's a different area that they like to wee or poo. This is really normal. Dogs often have separate areas for peeing and pooing. And once they've got into a routine of going out, then they'll start to find those areas and they'll start to prefer them. So when you bring them out to the garden, take them to those spots so it's clear, this is why we're here, we've come here to go to the toilet. Have treats by the back door ready. I can't emphasize enough actually how important it is to get the timing right for this. So many dogs will come outside, they've done the toilet outside, and if you're too slow, you don't have your treat on you, or it's in the house, or you didn't notice, then what you end up rewarding is something completely different. So maybe they've wandered off, maybe they're thinking about their toy, maybe they're going to a bush to eat the leaves. Something else is happening. By the time they get their treat, they're doing something completely different, and that's what got rewarded. So they need to be sure that doing the toilet where they did it outside in the garden is the right thing to do. So we need to get that reward to them as quick as possible. So keep yourself a little stash of treats or rewards by your back door so that they're ready for you. So as soon as you take your dog out to the toilet, it's the first thing you grab on the way through the door, and then you're ready with your treats to give them that reinforcement that they've done the right thing. Sniffing and searching behaviours are really good for stimulating bowel movements as well. So if you notice your dog sniffing around your garden, that's definitely something worth encouraging. And if you think that your dog needs to poop but is holding back, then try to get them to do some sort of sniffy games or sniff around, anything like that. Sniffing is the key. Once the sniffing starts, then the bow will start to kind of do its thing. So dogs, when they're learning something new, they go through a process of trial and error. So the very first thing is that they'll have an accident, and this works for all kinds of behaviours. It's not just toilet training, but a behaviour will happen for one reason or another, and it'll either get rewarded or ignored, or it'll have an unpleasant outcome. And this is how they decide whether this was a good thing to do or a bad thing to do, whether it should be repeated or not. But it doesn't just stop there. So your dog won't just go to the toilet in the garden a few times, get a few well-timed treats and go, that's it, I've cracked this, I know exactly what to do. They will want to try and test the process. So it's very normal for puppies to pretend to pee in the garden, because what they're trying to do is figure out exactly what they should be doing. That's normal. Don't worry about that. It's normal for your puppy to go through stages where they get things wrong, because again, they're just testing what they think they know. So once they've done this trial and error process a lot of times, they're getting an indication that toiling outside is actually quite a good thing. I should really try and aim for that. But until they're sure, they're going to just try a few other things just to see. So this is really normal. This is part of the process, but this is the bit where people start to give up and think their training's not working, because they think you're getting somewhere. Things are starting to look good, starting to get the idea, less accidents in the house, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden they take a little kind of detour and they start to get it wrong all the time. And it's really frustrating. This is just part of the learning process. And to get through this stage the quickest, you just need to be more consistent and quicker with your rewards. The clearer it is to your puppy what exactly it is they did right, the better. They'll get through this much, much quicker. I can never emphasize how important consistency is, because what if your puppy is out in the garden and they're on a trial run and they're going, I'm going to check actually to make sure that toileting in the garden is definitely the right thing. This is something that will happen into the process. Perhaps we've already kind of relaxed on the rules a little bit. We think we've cracked it. But this day, we didn't take a treat into the garden because our puppy knows how to do house training and he's good at this. And this day, he comes outside to check. He goes to the toilet in the garden. Nobody pays a blind bit of notice. Nobody cares. Nobody does anything, says anything. There's no reward. There's no nothing. And now he's confused now because he thought he had the idea. He thought he knew what he was doing. And on this test run, he came out. He did his toilet and nothing happened. And that's the same as in the house. You know, he'll be thinking, this morning I snuck around the back of the sofa and I went to the toilet and nothing happened then either. So they'll start to then lose their house training. This happens quite a lot when puppies get to about 4 or 5 months old. And purely it's just because people don't realise they go through this testing process, and that's the time that we need to be more consistent and get more rewarding rather than less. They haven't cracked it yet, and that goes for all different kinds of behaviours and training. It's a really frustrating part of the learning process, but when you know it's there, you know it's coming, you know just to work through that. Consistency is the key, and the timing, and that just speeds that process up, so you'll hardly notice it that way. Because the thing about house training is that in order for your dog to go to the toilet outside, they have to fight an instinct of their own. When they need to go to the toilet, obviously that becomes uncomfortable, and it would be better for them if they just went away from their sleeping area and went behind the sofa, because for them it satisfies that need really, really quickly. So when we're trying to house train them, we're trying to teach them to do something that is not natural to them. So this is why it needs a lot of work, and this is why it so quickly reverts when we don't get that right and that consistency breaks, and we stop giving them out the rewards on time like we had been doing up until now. So remembering that it's actually more comfortable for them, it suits their needs better to not go outside, and that we're fighting against that often really helps to know that we just have to keep on going. So let's talk a little bit about some of the ways that this can go wrong. So the first thing, of course, is to never ever scold an accident. If your dog's had an accident in the house, they didn't do it on purpose. They didn't do it to annoy you. They didn't do it to, punish you for something. It was just an accident. So the key to that is just to clean that up and be more vigilant next time. They would have given out some kind of sign that they needed to go, and it wasn't spotted in time. Go back to giving them more consistent treats, watch them like a hawk, perhaps go back to using a crate if you're using a crate, and just clean that up so that they don't recognize the smell of it whenever they're next moving around the house. They chose that space for a good reason. Maybe they felt that it was quite a good spot for them at the time. They'd moved away from where they needed to go. So we don't want to keep reminding them every time they go there that they've been there before. So a really, really good way to clean up is just using simple white vinegar mixed with water. This will get rid of the smell, not just for you and me, but it also gets rid of the smell for puppies as well. So they're not keep returning to the same spot, knowing that they've been there before. If you're going to use white vinegar, though, do check it on your carpet just to make sure it doesn't ruin your carpet. But it's a really good way to clean up those kind of accidents. Something else that's worth noting is that puppies don't instinctively know to go to the toilet when they're out for walks. So we think about it, we've spent the last kind of like 5 weeks. They've been stuck in the house, and that's really been the focus. We've been doing lots and lots of house training, lots and lots of trips to the garden. So after 5 weeks of that kind of training, they really are starting to think that the garden is the place. They don't know that the garden is outside, and it's the outside that is the rule. They think that they're being trained to go in the garden. So this is often a problem for people when they go for a walk, just like when there's toys and things down. You'll feel like there's been plenty of opportunities to go to the toilet. You don't realise that actually your dog's been trained to go to the garden and not outside. So you'll feel like actually they should have gone while they were on their walk. But the likelihood is that they don't. And many puppies and dogs don't start peeing on their walks until really they start to hit adolescence. Maybe 5 or 6 months for some early ones. If you live in a flat and you're house training your dog, then it might be the fact that you don't actually have your own garden, so you have been taking them out for walks right since the beginning. So they'll obviously get this a lot faster. But for most dogs that are being trained to go into the garden, to them the walk is not the same. So it'll take a while before that happens. But the important thing here to note is that when you come back from your walk, there's a very good chance they need to go. Just like when they've come in from the garden and they've been playing with their toys and forgotten to pee, when they come back from the walk, they will actually need to be going. If you just take them into the house and take the lead off, confident in the knowledge that they've had loads of opportunities, then they're going to have an accident. So whenever you go for a walk, even before, but certainly after, take them to their toilet spot and let them do all of their business when they get back from their walks. And then they won't have that accident when they come in the house. Something else to note, dogs don't always ask. And actually, this is better for you. Lots and lots of people will say to me they get very frustrated because their puppy won't ask them to go to the toilet. And actually very few dogs do ask to go to the toilet. If your dog is asking, then that's fine. But many don't. They just wait until they are let out to their spot or they go for their walks to go to the toilet. So when they get a bit older, they might go on their walks more. But as a puppy, they'll be waiting for you to take them outside. They'll do their little sniffing behaviours, maybe they'll sneak off, and that will give you some indications. They might even start to associate the back door with getting out into the garden, so they might go and sit by the back door, but this isn't something you should expect. Your dog may never do any of these things, and actually if they don't, this is probably a good thing, because frustration can come from a puppy that's has got used to asking to go out at certain times of the day. And then what happens when you're not there and they need to go to the toilet in the afternoon and you're not going to be back for a couple of hours? They'll be sitting by the back door doing their let me out routine, and there's nobody there to listen. There's nobody there to let them out. And that's really frustrating. And frustration is actually a much more serious problem than it sounds, because frustration leads to lots of other problems. So it's a good thing if your dog is not asking to go out all the time. Just let them get used to being invited out whenever the time is right and when part of their routine. Another big pitfall is, I think we've probably figured this out by now, being too slow with the rewards and lacking that consistency. Don't stop giving out treats until you're absolutely sure that your dog is fully house trained. And that will be maybe 4 or 5 months. Some puppies are very, very quick to look like they're house trained. They get this super fast, but don't stop with the treats. Keep reinforcing that behavior, because it's so easy for them to revert to just going wherever they want, that they won't hesitate. So as soon as you stop those rewards, that's when they start peeing in the house and sneaking off and things like that. So keep the rewards going until you're absolutely sure that they are house trained. Puppy pads. We have to talk about puppy pads, don't we? Because they're almost a normal part of your puppy buying routine now. When people go to the shops for the first time, it's the first thing they throw in their trolley. Puppy pads, new beds, blah, blah, blah. But just like we spoke about dogs, they will learn to go into the garden, but won't necessarily associate that with being outside. So therefore they won't go when they're on their walks. The same thing happens with puppy pads. We teach them to go on a puppy pad. And then when we move the puppy pad into the outside or move it somewhere else, they won't necessarily follow that pad. They won't instinctively do that. And then we basically just have to teach them all again. So if you're trapped in a flat or something like that, you might have to go through using puppy pads to train your puppy. But if you can avoid it, if you have a garden, then just go for it, because otherwise you're just going to end up teaching them to do this twice. So we need them to learn to go outside in the garden and eventually on their walks. But the pads, just teach them to search for pads. They just have to relearn all of that. So ditch the pads if you can. Having too much freedom in the house can be difficult as well. Once they are wandering off, going into different rooms and different places, then if you're not watching them, then they're pleasing themselves, and that's when accidents happen. And nothing bad will happen when an accident comes, and you should never scold them when they have an accident. Only reward them when they get it right. But if they have enough accidents in the house and then they lack rewards outside, then they're just going to be very unclear as to what was right or what was wrong. What should they be trying to do? So try to keep them in the same room that you're in. And on that, if you have lots of people in the house that are working on the house training with you and with your puppy, then this can be a problem too, because often everybody thinks somebody else is doing it and then nobody's doing it. So you can get around this with just having like an ordinary kitchen timer or an egg timer, something like that. And this plays really well into your routine of making sure you're taking them out at regular times, and also hourly even in between. So whoever's got the timer, that's the person that's training the puppy. They're the person that's supposed to be watching the puppy. It clears up all that confusion. And it means then that when you take your puppy out to the toilet, you can set the timer. If there's no kind of nothing expected, if you're not going to feed them anytime soon, or you're not expecting them to have a nap, set the timer for an hour. And then you know that when that timer goes off, if they haven't been out in between, then they need to go. And it doesn't matter then who is watching the puppy. So you can change halfway through. So maybe one of your teenage kids is watching them, and they have to go off and do something. They can hand the kitchen timer to somebody else, and that person can immediately pick up from where they left off. Everybody knows what the routine is in regards to sleeping and toys and food. And then when the timer goes off, if you haven't taken them out in between, then you know that they've been at least an hour since they were last out for the toilet. And that will keep you on track and keep you well routined when it comes to taking your puppy out. So hopefully those tips have really helped, and I'll see you on the next video.